Yeah, but everything's in there. Everything's in there. It's all downloaded. I just started streaming.
Okay, someone called me and said it wasn't. Okay. Before you all set to the desk.
Okay.
Maybe they bothered you too.
Nah,
When do you want to roll?
I just want to make sure that we're up.
Got it.
Good evening. I hereby announce that pursuant to Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided in the notice which was sent to the Asbury Park Press, the Two River Times, and posted on the bulletin board in Township Hall, and filed in the Township Clerk's office on January 5th, 2022. Mayor Bontempo?
Here.
Mr. Lucarelli?
Here.
Mr. Foster?
Here.
Mr. Impreviduto?
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. And everyone, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and please remain standing for a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everyone, please remain standing for a moment of silence to honor our troops both home and abroad who work tirelessly to protect us each and every day. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Homedale Township Committee meeting, December 13, 2022. So to start tonight's meeting, we have a special presentation. So for those that have been following our meetings all year, I've heard updates on some of the programs we put together in place for the veterans here in Homedale. Program that has gotten a lot of help from staff here in Homedale and someone from outside our community. So tonight I wanted to recognize that person. Captain Callahan joined the Navy in 1983. Served primarily in the submarine force and has served in posts around the U.S. and in the world, including Georgia, Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, Tennessee, Guam, and Italy. Selected for a limited duty officer program by which enlisted service members receive a commission as an officer. Has served as commanding officer of Naval Weapons Station Earl since July of 2020. The captain's work with Homedale has been amazing. Invited Homedale Township Committee leaders to participate in Naval Weapons Station Earl Community Day last year, where we met the Earl staff and toured the base to learn about its mission. Captain Callahan attended the inaugural Veterans Roundtable in July here, where he spoke to the Homedale veterans about his experiences serving in the military. Attended the ceremony dedicating Crawford's Corner Road to Homedale favorite son, General John Tillelli. Made a special presentation to the General. Invited the members of the Homedale Veterans Program on a privately led tour of Naval Weapons Station Earl last month, which was the best attended veterans meeting that we've ever run here. So it certainly was the main draw, as myself and Committeeman Foster saw firsthand with the veterans there. We are so grateful for the friendship we developed in between the captain and his team and the township. On behalf of the community, I want to say congratulations on your retirement from the United States Navy, which is going to happen next year, and many happy years for your service to the community. We have a special proclamation and then a little presentation we'd like to make to you, Captain. So proclamation, which is part of the little token we're leaving with you this evening. Whereas Edward L. Callahan joined the United States Navy in 1983, whereas after completing basic enlisted submarine school, and over the course of his career, Captain Callahan served on board the USS Henry L. Stimson, the USS John C. Calhoun, USS Mariano G. Vallejo, and USS Simon Lake, USS Topeka, and USS Frank Cable. And whereas Captain Callahan served in leadership posts of increasing responsibility in Italy, Georgia, Pearl Harbor, Tennessee, and Guam, whereas Captain Callahan participated in limited duty officer program, was commissioned an ensign in 1996, and was promoted several times over his career, ultimately promoted to captain in 2018. Whereas on July 17, 2020, Captain Callahan assumed duties as commanding officer of Naval Weapons Station Earl, whereas since arriving at Naval Weapons Station Earl, Captain Callahan has developed a robust partnership with the Township of Homedale and has particularly supported the Homedale Veterans Program. And whereas Captain Callahan will be honored by his colleagues, family, and friends upon his retirement from the United States Navy in 2023. Now therefore be it resolved by the Mayor and Township Committee, the Township of Homedale, that July 31st will be claimed Captain Edward Callahan Day, the Township of Homedale. And so be commemorated on the residents therefore. Be further resolved that the Mayor, Township Committee, professional staff, veterans, and the residents of Homedale congratulate Captain Callahan on his upcoming retirement and service to the nation. Wish him good health and happiness and success. We ask the veterans that participate in the program to join us. So Captain Callahan, would you please come up? I'd like to present you with your little token, and then the veterans please come up as well, because I'd like to get you guys in a picture that participate in the program. Thank you, Captain.
Our pleasure.
I'm not normally speaking. This has got to be one of the greatest honors that I've ever received. In addition to that, see that flag of Homedale? Ever since I received one of those flags, it's been flying in my office ever since, along with the pictures of all the tours that I've taken, to include the one that Mayor Von Temple was on himself. I'm extremely honored to be partnered with Homedale, and my goal was to not just look at the communities that surround the base, but look at the communities that we can make an impact in. And God knows I love my veterans.
Veterans, please come out. Please, everybody get a picture. You're right on the back. You're in the back, too. Step up.
You know the thing, if somebody's taller than you, slide by. Tara, I only have a 10-second sucking time. And you
All right, thank you.
As you can tell, it's obvious I did not know about anything because I came straight from work. I didn't even dress up for the occasion because this is how I am every day. Homedale, the one thing I can tell you from a guy who's moved around his entire life, and I'm even an Army brat, so even in my youth I've moved around a lot, this is one hell of a town. You are very, very lucky to have the leadership they have in this office. Again, and when it comes to service comes in all forms.
When the mayor brings up consent agenda, just say, Mayor, I'd like this side of the vote.
But I tell you, selfless service is also what I see in the mayor and his team. Because this man never served, but the way he is the model for what he did for the veterans here trying to emulate that with other communities based on the homeless model. So I'm very honored to be part of that.
Come on. You guys work behind the scenes in the program. Help put together this.
No, I'm gonna deal with that in the attorney. Oh, actually, you know what? I'm sorry. Hey, that is, we have the title listed, but not the resolution.
Yeah, I'm trying all day.
Yeah, it's 2022-334.
Michael, excuse me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
DJ.
Michael.
That means they're gonna help us.
1 second.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. That's awesome. Thanks for having me. Thanks so much. That was awesome.
Here, maybe you can.
Guess I'm gonna go.
Take care, sir. We'll see you soon.
I'll be the one leaving crying. So the meeting, you guys got one here.
There has been a significant amount of time and effort put in by the staff. Barbara, Bill, Tara, the chief have done an amazing job with the veterans program. So veteran, thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. It meant a lot to kind of see the captain off, because he's going to be us for a little while longer, but not too much longer. And it was wanted to make sure that we really wanted to recognize and appreciate him for what he did, especially with that the tour we were able to get. Just a few weeks ago. So thank you for coming out. So next approval of minutes, Wendy?
Approve of the minutes for September 27th, 2022, executive and public sessions, October 11th, executive and public sessions, October 27th, executive and public sessions, and November 22nd, public session.
Do you want to take a roll call? Do you need motion, right? Because we have I need to recuse on.
Why don't we take, Mayor, if you're okay with it, why don't we take September 27th, 2022 separately?
Okay.
We can do that. Okay, so September 27th, 2022, executive and public sessions.
Motion.
Second.
You're doing.
All right, Mr. Foster? I'm going to abstain. Mr. Improviduto?
Yes.
Mr. Lucarelli?
Yes.
Mayor Bontempo?
Abstain.
Okay. And
Mr.
then-
Foster was just seated as a committee member at that meeting, so given that status, it's really a 2-0-1 vote and the motion passes.
And then the rest of the minutes, the October 11th, October 27th, and November 22nd.
Do I have a motion?
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Improviduto?
Yes.
Mr. Lucarelli?
Yes.
Mayor Bontempo?
Yes.
Thank you. All the minutes have been successfully passed.
So before we go into consent agenda, you have updates to the agenda, Mike?
Mayor, there are some items that we will handle in my attorney report, just with respect to the consent agenda. The only note for the public's benefit, there was an agenda item that didn't have a resolution attached. That was because it was in bid review, but the resolution awarding contract for transfer station recycling materials, which is resolution 2022-334. The recommendation is to award to the low bidder Nature's Choice Corporation in the amount of $216,920. It's also the recommendation that the consent agenda have 2022-328 pulled. And as I said, we'll have further actions in my attorney report.
Okay. Okay. So public comment on tonight's consent agenda items? Any public comment on tonight's consent agenda, 2022-308 through 2022-334? So yes? Yes, come on.
Jenny Blumenthal, 41 Stony Brook Road. My comment relates to consent agenda item 333, authorizing the township engineer to provide services relating to Homedale Arboretum. My first question is, where did this come from? Who thought it up? Somebody had to have thought it up.
Ask all your questions and we'll answer them.
You are asking the township committee to authorize the expenditure of $35,000 for something you don't have any idea what you're talking about. Do you know what an arboretum is? You apparently do not. An arboretum, I looked it up in the dictionary, is a place where an extensive variety of woody plants are cultivated for scientific, educational, and ornamental purposes. It says nothing about honoring people. It says nothing about spending unnecessary dollars for what amounts to a memorial garden. You need to get your vocabulary straight. $35,000 for this is absolutely absurd. A number of years ago, for a number of years, we had a shade tree committee. Because of the wisdom of a number of people on the township payroll, it was decided that the shade tree committee was unnecessary, and we were all sent packing. Most of one of the items included in the $35,000 are things that the shade tree committee could have done for free. Why you want $12,000 for a base mapping of the front yard of this building, which I already have a picture of here that was attached to this item. Why you need to spend all sorts of bidding documents, design permit phrases. Township never applies for permits for anything that it has on its own front yard. Also, you're going to spend $20,000 on the landscaping. Well, I will bet that you will then have a list of trees, maybe not, that you will then make available to the public so that then they can pay $500 a piece or even more to plant a tree in their memory. And it might not even be the species of tree that they might want, because an arboretum has many, many, many different species. But you're going to probably plant 15 arborvitae that the deer will eat up. And then you're going to put a bench in. You're already charging $3,000 for those as memorial benches. I think you ought to rethink this. I have no problem with jazzifying the front yard a little bit, but $35,000 to the engineers, $20,000 that you're not going to receive, I bet, all that we're paying for.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else in public? Seeing now, close public comment. A motion on the consent.
So, Mayor, there's two things. Number one, I wanted to recuse myself from item number 334.
334.
And I'd like to make a motion to remove 2022-333 from the consent agenda.
I'll second the removal of 333.
Roll call, please. DJ's recusing on
We actu-
334.
If it's okay with the committee, we actually don't need a motion. We could just have those removed from the consent agenda on request, if that's okay with everyone.
Okay, so I'll make a formal request to remove that from the
Okay.
consent agenda.
So,
333 is going to be removed?
correct, and
Yes.
and if the committee's okay with it, I'd recommend 328 based upon our discussion earlier.
328 we're removing as well, right?
Correct.
Yes. So the vote is 222-308 through 222-334 minus 228 and 333. Do I have a motion?
328, just to clarify, Mayor. You said 228.
I'm sorry.
That's okay, just want to clarify.
There's a lot of twos on there.
Mike, you clarified that for the record, right?
Yes.
So I'll make a motion.
Okay, thank you.
Do I have a second?
Mayor.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Impreviduto?
Yes.
Mr. Lucarelli?
Yes.
Mayor Bontempo?
Yes.
So the resolutions have passed excluding 328 and 333.
Next is hearing on ordinances, Wendy.
Hearing on ordinance 2022-31, which is an ordinance establishing section 3-17 titled Motor Vehicle Protection Regulations.
You want? Oh, I did motion that. Okay, so any public comment on 2022-31? Public comment, yes.
Hi, Bill Little, 8 Coventry Square. I read this and I was pretty concerned about the broadness and the scope of it, because if I'm reading this, Part A says illegal for any person to remain on a driveway, paved surface, or location within 20 feet of a stationary motor vehicle, which paved surface is a street, so I can't even walk down a street and look at a car. I mean, how many of us as young men saw a hot new car in the street and wanted to look inside to see, you know, the dashboard, the steering wheel, you know, the shifter, 4 on the floor? Is that going to be illegal? And, you know, it just seems ridiculously broad. Maybe the intent is you can't look into a car in conjunction with B items, what is it? The other ones, you know, with hitting the handle or whatever. But that's not what it says. Right now, it just seems way too broad. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. You want to touch on that, Counselor?
Certainly, Mayor, through you. You know, the committee has been, you know, trying to look at creative ways to address the very serious situation we're facing involving car thefts. And from a legal standpoint, we're trying to find ways where at the municipal level we can put meaningful regulations on the books in the area that we can regulate. And on the township side, we're very limited in the area we can regulate because state law, and specifically the state's criminal code at NJSA 2C, is, you know, what typically governs most offenses. And if state law addresses a specific offense, that preempts the municipality from adopting an ordinance in that area. And a lot of the, you know, if someone steals your car, they committed a 2C offense, and there's nothing here on the township level for us to regulate because that's already covered by state law. The intent here is to create ordinance violations for certain conduct that may not constitute a 2C violation, but clearly is within the ambit of the issues that we're facing with car thefts. Specific to the concern about overbroadness, what I can tell you is that the language, knowing that he or she is not licensed or privileged to enter or remain in said location, is actually borrowed from 2C as it pertains to trespassing. That's the legal standard contained in the trespassing statute. And following that same line of reasoning, one could probably make the argument that the trespassing statute in state law is overbroad. But I think from a practical standpoint, the police, you know, don't enforce it in an overbroad way, and they wouldn't find probable cause to arrest or issue a citation for someone who's engaged in proper conduct. And to the example we just heard, if you're on a public street, you actually are licensed or privileged to be in that area because it's a public street, and so you would not be violating it. The intent here really is somebody going on someone's private property, clearly knowing it doesn't belong to them and that they don't have the right to be there, and committing that act, making that an ordinance violation. So that's kind of the narrow area that we're looking to regulate here, again, in the context of the fact that the township has, you know, limited authority, but we're trying to use that limited authority meaningfully because we're facing a, you know, a very serious public safety issue with the car thefts.
Yeah, and when Deputy Mayor Lucarelli and I, you know, worked on this with the township attorney and the chief, you know, this is we needed to make sure we were supporting our police both in spirit and in action, and the residents both in spirit and in action. So to Mike's point, you know, walking down the street isn't going to get anybody in trouble for looking around. There's a reasonable standard that has to be applied to these things, and I think it's just really important for people at large to know it's not open season on Homedale anymore. right? We're going to do everything we can to the fullest extent of the law to stop these perpetrators and do everything we can to ensure the safety of our residents. And public safety, as we all know, is our number one concern here. So I think, understanding your points, sir, for sure. I think Mike articulated it very well, and I think you guys understand both the spirit and the act that we're getting behind.
Anybody else for public comment? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. Do I have a motion?
Move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please, Wendy.
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Improvisato?
Yes.
Mr. Lucarelli?
Yes.
Mayor Bontempo?
Yes.
Ordinance 2022-31 has been successfully passed. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. We'll do department updates, do it administrator and then CFO.
Thank you, Mayor. Excuse me, I have two things tonight. The fire department has received notification that the new ladder truck is being built, and we expect to get it by the early part of March in 2023. Secondly, a lot of people have inquired about the recycling of plastic film and bags. We did inquire whether or not we can have them at the Public Works Department. The problem they had with that is a lot of people are just dumping all kinds of stuff that should have been dumped over there. And in order to avoid contamination, we wish to keep it over here at Town Hall. If you do have a large volume of bags, you can call Victor at Town Hall Extension 1952, and he'll arrange for somebody to meet you over here and collect them from you. That's my updates, Mayor.
Good, thank you. Council, any updates?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I have a number of items here tonight. So, given that it's the last meeting of the calendar year, there are a few items that came late in the game and that we're going to be looking to bring to the committee's attention. The first are two rather routine items that I would request a motion on if the committee would so choose. The first is a resolution approving the release of a performance bond and related actions for the applicant at Block 25, Lot 21. And the second is a resolution accepting deeds of easement relative to Block 29, Lot 31. That was the lot number prior to subdivision at 800 Homedale Road.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
You'll do roll call, Wendy?
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Improvisato?
Yes.
Mr. Lucarelli?
Yes.
Mayor Bontempo?
Yes.
Thank you. The second topic is insurance. The township's insurance coverages expire at the end of the calendar year, so the township has been in the process of obtaining proposals from various joint insurance funds, which are entities that represent municipalities and other public entities to procure insurance for the coming year. There are two actions that are required associated with the insurance. The first is a resolution to join the Garden State Municipal Joint Insurance Fund, which happens to be the township's incumbent joint insurance fund. And the second is a resolution authorizing procurement of property, liability, and workers' compensation insurance policies from the Garden State Municipal Joint Insurance Fund. The annual quoted premium on the resolution is $752,464.
Do I have a motion?
Moved.
Second.
Roll call, please, Wendy?
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Improvisato?
Yes.
Mr. Lucarelli?
Yes.
Mayor Bontempo?
Yes.
Thank you. So that was those two items. The third and final item, Mayor and committee members, that I want to bring to your attention is an issue that's come to the township's attention involving the pilot agreement that is struck between the township and the residents at Regency at Homedale, which is an age-restricted housing community that has a pilot agreement under the long-term tax exemption law. Long story short, this is the one pilot agreement in Homedale that is structured in a way in which it is based upon the condominium form of ownership by individual property owners. And under state law, under the long-term tax exemption law, which is at NJSA 40A:20A-1, there are a lot of strictures that govern property tax exemptions. Back on August 19th, 2016, the township entered into a financial agreement with Toll Homedale Urban Renewal LLC, which is the urban renewal entity of Toll Brothers that went ahead and built the Regency community. And obviously that development has occurred, and Toll has sold those units to third parties. Now, the financial agreement has provisions in it that are wholly consistent with state law, which uses a formula to calculate pilot payments, which is based upon a computation of what a unit owner is expected to be paying in the form of principal and interest under a conventional 30-year mortgage at prevailing interest rates, in addition to their HOA fee. The legislature obviously thought that this formula, would be a means of calculating the pilot payments, but perhaps did not recognize the potential unintended consequence of pilot payments being computed that are in excess of what conventional taxes would provide for the subject property because of the unusually high interest rate environment that we are in. For example, at the time the pilot agreement might have been entered into, you might have had interest rates near 3%, and now we're in an environment where they're more than double that. And again, the corollary result is that upon sales of properties, people are encountering pilot payments that are in excess of what conventional taxes would otherwise prescribe, which, the township has reviewed and certainly feels is inconsistent with the spirit of the financial agreement, as well as what, is intended under the long-term tax exemption law. It's a complex issue, and I'm certainly happy to answer any questions that the committee may have. But essentially, given the situation and the potential for people being taxed higher than they would otherwise be taxed conventionally, the intention of the committee is to institute a cap where pilot payments would be calculated under the current financial agreement under its precise terms, but also that pilot payment amount be compared to a cap that is tethered to the conventional tax rate, and whichever is the lower amount would be the one that the tax collector would go ahead and force against the unit owner. Again, the spirit being people shouldn't be taxed more than what conventional taxes prescribe, and to make a value determination that's consistent with the pilot agreement. In terms of that cap, the other consideration that the township has to take into account is that the pilot agreement also prescribes an administrative fee of 2%, and so if the cap were the exact tax amount, that would, further the unfairness because people would be paying, again, over conventional taxation. And so, based upon a significant review, the intention or recommendation would be to institute a cap that would be at 90% of what the conventional taxation calculation is. Again, trying to be faithful to the spirit of the financial agreement, which is a long-term tax exemption that over time catches up and in the 30th year would sunset and conventional taxes would govern. So I realize that this is a complicated issue. It has come to the fore because of the interest rate environment we're in, and also, given that this impacts different people and that this is the last meeting of the calendar year, it kind of necessitated adding this as an item that wasn't originally on the agenda. So that's kind of the background on the item. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions the committee may have.
So since typically this is done through a redevelopment agreement, whether there are public hearings and the public that's here tonight is just learning about this now, I would open to any public comment on this before it's voted on. If anybody has any questions on it, you can certainly come up to the microphone, state your name, still did with the 3-minute rule, Wendy, and because this is a pretty significant issue in town.
Hello, Chris.
You could hold it, Chris, or pull it up, whatever's easier for you.
I just had a few follow-up questions, Mike.
Just state your name and address
Chris
for the record.
Cadwell, 19 Goldsmith. Did you say that the administrative fee was 2%, and your recommendation is to have a pilot cap at 90%? So based on your explanation, I'm just wondering why an additional 8% would be granted. My understanding that a pilot is to incent people to build a development, and given that it's already built, why would we give an additional 8%? Sorry, I didn't come prepared, but just had that question.
To address the question, the township's been reviewing internal data, and the intention of the financial agreement that the people who purchased into the community had, and that the township espoused by adopting the financial agreement, was that those units would be afforded an operable tax exemption under the long-term tax exemption law. In terms of the percentage, if the percentage were lower, you would be in an instance where some people who are currently paying pilot payments would then have their payments reduced. And the rough calculations we have is that the 90% is a mark where the current units are predominantly under that, but it would address moving forward, ensuring that any of the future sales of units and any of the current transactions that may be affected have the benefit of the program and the tax exemption that's contained under it. Again, the percentage is something that the assessor has worked with the CFO and myself to review and determine something that would be workable, and again, not actively cut taxes that people are currently paying, but also address this situation that's going to be an issue for the community moving forward if the question about what the taxation will be is not answered.
So one of the things that we addressed when I was up here 6-7 years ago, Mike, when we adopted this.
This was before my time, Mayor.
Okay, before you. So was the fact that all the payments, the pilot payment in lieu of taxes, are coming to the town. 95%, and 5% go to the county. And I think the committee at the time unanimously agreed that we did not want to cut the school or the Board of Ed out. So we agreed was to embark on projects to support them, whether it was technology or athletics or something to support the school to help offset, because the town is getting a windfall, right? This is a significant amount of money the town is receiving, and we want to do something. And I think the new board up here, kind of all in agreement that is something that we want to continue to do, because we want to make sure that our school systems remain as good as they can be, and they get the funding they need, and hence the reason why the attorney is recommending that this be added to the agenda tonight for a vote. So we are looking to include the schools, not exclude the schools, because of the dynamics that have changed dramatically in the town. When we did this some years ago to now, right, there's going to be a lot of high-density housing coming up with the affordable housing plan. It's going to put some additional pressure on the school system. So we're looking to do something to help offset some of the expenses that they're going to be incurring, just based on that and the dynamics of how this town has changed. Yes, in the back.
Ralph Blumenthal, 41 Stony Brook Road. Just to put some context around this, approximately how much in pilot payments are we getting per year from the Regency now, and with this change, what would it then be?
Give us I'm not sure we have those calculations exactly right here. Do you, Bill?
I think it was 1.5. You had it somewhere.
Do you remember what they were? I think that was when we get to the total. Yeah. Yeah. I don't have the chart with me. Do you remember, Brad? Anybody else in the public while they're looking that up? Yes. We're looking that up. I just want to keep going so we can.
That question could certainly be answered. Yeah, and yeah, we're not flying blind here, folks. We've been having, a significant number of meetings. The assessor and the tax collector are really the officers who, this falls within. And we've had numerous conversations with them, and, the spreadsheets are rather ornate. So we're going to get that answer for the resident.
Barbara Singer, 5 Deerfield Road. One question on this, does this require county approval since it impacts their percentage that they're getting? And I really think before you vote on it, somebody should have the dollar amount handy, because percentages are great, but knowing the dollar impact, I think, is more important to yourselves. And I'm sure the numbers have been crunched, but it would be nice to have that in your heads or somewhere in this discussion with the public. Thank you.
Currently, we're collecting about 2.6 million from the Regency. Again, what it's going to change, we're not sure because it depends on future sales.
Yeah, so on that note, whether the committee took an action or didn't, we really can't forecast into the future what would happen, because this issue with the pilot payment being in excess of conventional taxes is really only occurring when people, from a practical standpoint, 9 times out of 10 it's happening when people are selling their units and somebody is coming in, because that resets what the sale value is of the home, and it resets the imputed interest rate at the current interest rates, which are obviously drastically higher than people who bought into the community at the beginning. With respect to the commenter's question about the statutory authority, we do have a resolution prepared here, and I would note that under the long-term tax exemption law, at NJSA 48:12A 14-14C, that provision specifically governs the conveyance of condominium units under financial agreements. So typically under a pilot agreement, there are restrictions upon an urban renewal entity from selling the unit or the project, because, you know, the township has an interest in ensuring the financials of that entity. But in the individual unit owner residential setting, the legislature has essentially said the unit owner can sell their unit, which makes sense. Now, in that clause under that statute, it makes clear that that conveyance is authorized, and then it says, quote, subject in an instance of housing to the provisions of any municipal resolution adopted pursuant to the section. So if the committee were to take an action, it would be under that statutory authority and the overall statutory authority that's afforded under the long-term tax exemption law.
Anybody else in the public? Yes.
Jay Yanello, 18 Lattimore Drive. First of all, Mike, sorry for your loss. I lost my dad 4 years ago in November, so I know the feeling.
Thank you.
And he was a neighbor. I'm just curious, why at year end? What's the importance at year end? Is just to start the new calendar with the new formulas? Why? I might have missed it. Why are we trying to fit this in at year end?
I'm happy to answer. I guess the mayor usually wants you to ask all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I guess I get your point, the spirit, keep it in the spirit of things. But I mean, we're talking about people coming in buying $1 million, $1.1 million townhouses. Many of us are aghast by our renovated houses, how our tax rates are going up. Should we be subsidizing people, new buyers? I understand the initial need. You know, we're all for Bell Works. We support what's going on there. We love what's going on there. But these are new buyers. These are new people coming in town. Do they need incentives to buy these 1 million, whatever these are, while some of us are really getting, excuse my English, screwed? I think that's something that needs to be addressed. I also think, Mayor Bontempo, your point about the schools is fine. That was a big debate, what's going to the schools, what's not going to the schools. But, you know, you're pretty credible. There could be other people up there not as credible, more credible, less credible. What is going to go to the schools? You know, if this is being really uplifted, this level, if rates stay high, they could go higher. We don't know. Food inflation was up 10% over, you know. Some people are saying inflation's going down. Who knows? We don't know. But the point is, there could be truly a windfall coming to the township committee. What might that be used for? We've seen some really bad things for township committee taxes before. $300,000 once to reseed a turf field at Cross Farm Park. I mean, are you kidding me? This could be money that could be spent not appropriately. So I think we need numeric examples. I think we need averages. I think we need aggregate amounts. If we sell a third of the houses over the next 5 years, I think we need some real numbers. And I really have a problem, and I'm sure many residents and retirees would have a problem subsidizing new people coming in, new money coming in, and spending $1 million, $1.1 million on townhouses. I get it, we're spirit. I guess 90% is reasonable, but I think there needs to be more of an explanation and more clarity on what this TC and what future TC members are, no offense to you guys, are going to do with this money since it's not going to the school.
You want to touch?
Sure.
So one thing that what the pilot does, I'm not sure if you said this, if I don't want to duplicate it, but when you're in the pilot program, you're not part of the reassessment. So
I understand that.
Yeah,
Yep.
but if you're out, then you are.
Yep.
So go ahead, Mike.
I guess a couple of things. One, you know, under the legislature adopted, you know, the long-term tax exemption law, which is an exemption from the state constitutional requirement that everyone's taxed equally. So that's a determination by the legislature. Obviously, the township several years ago made a determination to utilize the long-term tax exemption law here. And candidly, the purpose under the law and the developers required to make the demonstration at the time that they built the development, which is essentially this development is not getting built but for the receipt of this pilot agreement. So that's why pilot agreements exist in New Jersey. The theory behind it is that something can't happen without it.
And I'm not disputing
Yeah,
that.
I understood.
Yeah.
And I think just two points. One, in terms of the timing, I don't want anyone to come across with a takeaway that the township committee is sneaking this on at the last December meeting because it's the last December meeting. The reason why this is coming up now is because the township committee has been advised by different residents within the community who are selling their units and are encountering issues with their buyers because they're getting computed pilot payments that are higher than the conventional tax rate, and that issue has come to the fore. And if the committee wants to take action without the gap of significant time, that could be affecting real estate transactions.
So it's affecting transactions pending.
I don't want to speak to any.
Okay,
I'm not the. I'm no attorney for any of the parties, but I could tell you that anybody who's selling their home is a resident of the town, and they have the right to petition the committee and articulate that as a potential concern. Also, with respect to the overall incentive program, the committee does, as the entity that approved the pilot back in the day, has an interest in ensuring that it's administered in a way that is fair to the people under the pilot and to all the residents of the town. And so the determinations that they're making here are meant to be as faithful as they can to the public policy that's espoused. And like I said earlier, the percentage is intended to be in a way that doesn't give any current residents from their current payments a significant windfall where people are getting their taxes cut, but it's meant to prospectively, and under the text of the resolution, this only affects tax year 23 and moving forward. So we're not talking about 22, we're not talking about any past years, but moving forward, ensuring that this question is essentially answered. What is going to happen if I'm going to sell my house and I'm subject to the terms of the financial agreement the way it's currently structured? And, as a committee, the governing body members here are, left to fill in this void that's really been left by the legislature statutory formula.
And Jay, if I can just answer one of your questions more specifically, I think, it was known early on, the spirit of and the expectation of the pilot was that money would go, a percentage of that money would go towards the schools, as Mayor Bontempo mentioned, the projects, and we haven't done that. My personal perspective, and I've said it many times before, is if we can just start by paying for school security, that's $250,000, right? And we can handle public safety, and then we can look, that would be my first preference, if you will. I'm speaking only for myself on this. And then we can look and see where it sort of ladders up and what else we can bolt on to assist the school district in. I think it's also, the other important component of the pilot program for all taxpayers is that it has had a hand, it's contributed to the 0% tax rate increase in Homedale. It's not solely responsible, but the monies that have come in through the town have helped keep that tax rate at 0% for all of the residents as well. So what you're talking, so part of what we've been sort of, working on really quite quickly over the past 5 to 7 days is ensuring we land in a place that everyone continues to benefit from this, and that we can, sort of get back to the expectation that was set early as well.
Okay. Well, if you do move forward with this tonight, I just really hope you all keep in mind, residents will see what you're spending. We'll track these numbers, and we want this money spent wisely. Thank you.
And I would just say, Jay, that they should, and I agree with you, and it should be spent wisely, and that is obviously the intent of this entire committee.
And if I could just add one more thing to that. I sat on the Board of Ed with Ms. Lou back there, and Mike Sokol as well, rest his soul, and this came up pretty much nonstop on the 3 years I was on the board about this money and where is it going and when is the schools going to get a portion. So I will definitely be watching out for that, and I know these guys are behind, making sure that happens as well. So great points, everybody, and thank you for all the questions. This decision was not taken lightly by any means.
Anybody else in the public? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. Anything else you want to add, Counselor? to this?
That certainly, I think I've addressed what I was looking to address, Mayor. As I mentioned earlier, there is a resolution that we discussed in executive session, and that could be moved, seconded, and adopted tonight if the committee so desires.
Okay. So do you want to take a motion?
And again, it's good, if, I'll read the resolution by title. It's a resolution relating to financial agreement governing Regency at Homedale. And as I expressed earlier, it would mechanically establish the cap that we discussed. The resolution will certainly be shared by the clerk's office, but I think the operative paragraph that I'll just read for the benefit of anyone who's affected by it, if the resolution's adopted, under the Regency pilot agreement, the township shall calculate and collect the annual service charge as the lesser of A, the amount calculated pursuant to Article 1F of the Regency pilot agreement and related provisions, or B, 90% of the amount that the subject property would have otherwise paid in conventional ad valorem taxes had the property been taxable in the corresponding year, which shall be calculated using the annual exempted tax assessment found on the annual tax list multiplied by the annual general tax rate.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please, Wendy.
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Improvisato?
Yes.
Mr. Lucarelli?
So, again, I just want to let let the public know that this is something that we worked very hard on. I want to thank our council, our CFO, our tax assessor. This was not easy, but we were tasked and kind of left holding the bag on this one, and we did what we thought was best for the community, for the residents of Regency, and I'm a yes on this.
Mayor Bontempo?
I'm going to abstain, Wendy.
Okay. So the pilot agreement has been successfully passed.
Thank you. Engineer, any updates?
Yeah, I just have one update there. Oh, there we go. Ben wanted me to let you know that he met with the TABS committee to update them on the bikeway project. This is the phase 1. It's been funded through a grant from Monmouth County Open Space. The design is moving forward. Survey and base map is done. Next step after the preliminary design is done is to assess whether any wetlands permitting or flood hazard permitting would be necessary. But I just want to report the project's ongoing, and he did meet with the committee to update them.
Yeah, I was on that call. He was good. We had one of the officers on the call and update the committee, and we're making progress. So we're hoping that get this project rolling as quickly as we can with all the DEP permitting that's needed. Thank you. We'll go to boards and committees. Committeeman Foster, any updates?
Yeah, just a couple quick things. So the Homedale Police Department is reminding people the secure online shopping during the holidays. The police department encourages Homedale residents to exercise caution when online shopping this season. Check your devices to make sure they're secure. Shop through trusted sources and use safe methods for payments. And you can visit the Homedale Police Department website for more details. Traffic safety, obviously a lot more delivery vehicles out on the streets, so please be cautious and aware. Reminder, of course, to lock your cars, take your keys, and secure your homes. In the Homedale Fire Department, we have another new member there, which is excellent, still growing. We are always looking for new volunteers. To inquire about membership, please email info@hfrc2.org. And the Santa runs, I'm sure people have been hearing the sirens and seeing them drive all over town on some freezing nights. There's no set schedule, so just please check the Facebook webpage to see when he's coming along. Still waiting on more details from the building renovations. Still full on the Explorers programs, trying to get all those high school kids and others as much time as they can. I spoke with Chris Trichetta this week as well, and that's pretty much all I have.
Thank you. Committeeman Improvisato.
Thank you, Mayor. For community development, a new state law for New Jersey requires landlords and business owners to carry $500,000 in liability insurance related to injuries that may occur at their properties. Community development has implemented a program to contact all landlords and business owners to ensure they're in compliance with the law. We're also pleased to announce that our new Land Use Board Secretary, Courtney Lopez, started this week. This consolidation of positions will enable the department to be more efficient and will save us taxpayer money. Each of the department's fire prevention specialists has been assigned a portfolio of property owners and business managers so they can begin to develop relationships with the owners and that these relationships will ensure the timely reporting of fire safety issues as well as compliance with all new and existing codes and statutes. Regarding the Homedale Board of Education and my liaison role there, we are working to more tangibly bridge the gap between the Board of Education and the Township Committee. For starters, we're going to work to incorporate a section of the Homedale Township newsletter and provide that an opening for the Board of Education and their updates and highlights, so that we can start just being a little bit more proactive with the town and keep communications open, and again, sort of just establish a greater sense of synchronicity, if you will, between the two bodies and between the school district. We did have a discussion around having an officer in front of the high school in the mornings. The Board of Education will need to make a form, and it was favorably received. They're going to go back, the superintendent will go back and talk to the high school principal, among others, size the issue, and they will make a formal request to us to provide an officer in the morning to direct traffic, at which point we will discuss and ultimately provide, should they determine the need exists for all. And then, as I mentioned earlier, one thing that I had broached with the Board of Education, as well as I just mentioned now, we do want to look at the current shared services agreement, whereby we're paying on an escalating scale, I think 10% of school security, to get that number all the way up to 100% as soon as possible. And again, it's been my position for quite some time that the township's responsible for public safety, and this is an extension of that. That will allow the Board of Education to take the money they currently pay for school security and use as they see fit. And you know, ultimately, we, of course, expect it to be to the betterment of the students. Regarding the Homedale Heritage Committee, they met with the Homedale Police Department and the Assistant School Superintendent and discussed cases related to discrimination within our schools and within our town, and are looking at ways in which they can assist everyone in those areas. You know, the impetus for the Heritage Committee was to ensure that the diverse cultures within our town can get just much closer, not only to the community, but also to this governing body as well. So with those discussions happening, we very much appreciate the work done there. And when they come back with recommendations, we'll be all ears to see how and what we can do to make sure that everybody here feels comfortable within their home, within their neighborhood, and that we are taking care of everybody and focusing our attention where it ought to be out for, you know, for those in need here. So the next Homedale Heritage Committee meeting, I believe, is December 15th, and those are my three, Mayor.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. The recreation, we had the Christmas tree and menorah lighting here at Town Hall. It was last week it was very successful. It was hundreds of residents and children in attendance, and we wanted to thank everyone who attended and made it possible. The Homedale Township Fire Department, the Police Department, who escorted Santa around the event. We want to thank them for their attendance and their help with that. Recycling, let's see, changing the location for the metal recycling in 2023. Beginning in 2023, the township white metal recycling program will be incorporated into a large item drop-off events. There will no longer be a container at the Department of Public Works for the disposal of the items, such as washing machines, dryers, dishwashers, swing sets, etc. Please plan to bring the white metal recycling items to the large item drop-off, which will begin in the spring. And then after Christmas, there'll be the Christmas tree pickup schedule. We'll have sections A and B will be the week of January 9th, C and D the week of January 16th, and then the last call for all sections will be the week of January 23rd. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Couple things. So REITs Across America, that tomorrow, December 14th, the organization REITs Across America will be at the New Jersey Vietnam Veterans Memorial, which is right here in back of Town Hall. REITs Across America is an outstanding organization that places holiday wreaths on the graves of veterans all across the United States. To volunteer to lay wreaths at a cemetery near you or to participate in the ceremony at the New Jersey Vietnam Veterans Memorial, visit the organization's website, wreathsacrossamerica.org. And actually, we had a representative from REITs Across America come to one of our veterans roundtables not that long ago and spoke about it and his involvement in it. And it's a great organization that does a lot of great things in town and across the community. The Anchor Tax Relief Program, I mentioned this last meeting, the state of New Jersey has extended the application deadline for the Anchor Tax Relief Program to January 31st, 2023, giving taxpayers an extra month to apply. As previously mentioned, the Anchor program replaces a previous homestead rebate and increases both the number of eligible applicants as well as the size of the benefit received. Eligible homeowners can apply online, by phone, or paper application. With the upcoming holidays, the remainder of the year, Town Hall, offices, and recycling center will be closed in the observance of the holiday season on Friday, December 23rd, Monday, December 26th, and on January 2nd. I know we've mentioned the fire and the Santa run, but I had the privilege of going out with them on Friday. Myself and Mrs. Claus, Allison Gibney from our recreation department, who did an amazing job. And these guys are all volunteers, and they all rally around and help each other out and do this program, not for their own gain, but really for the community. And when you see the excitement on not only the children, but the families when they come out and they have these predetermined present drop-off set up, and I think we did probably close to 20 on Friday night. Yeah, it was cold out, but they do them, and I was out there with them. I couldn't say no. The feedback they get from the community is really amazing, and it's one of the nicest things I think keeps Holmdel is what these guys do, and they often don't get recognized for going above and beyond with the things around this holiday season, but they're busy. They have families. They're trying to get the shopping done and their houses cleaned and their party prepping done, but they're out every weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, delivering presents, and then, as the committeeman said, they're out during the week going through the town and going through the streets and making sure Santa hits literally every street in town, in addition to the drop-off of the presents. So I really wanted to acknowledge them, really thank them for everything that they do, because seeing it firsthand with little boys and girls coming out and overwhelmed when the fire truck pulls up and Santa's on the back, and these guys just do it. It really was a class act, and it's really a well-run machine. So the leadership over there and all the members do an amazing job, and I just want to shout out to them and thank them for everything that they're doing in making the town a better place. So with that being said, I will now open the meeting up to any public comments. Any public comment? Wendy, you want to read our public comment statement?
In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, this is a public comment period for public comment on any governmental issue of public concern. In accordance with Resolution 2022-17, public commenters are asked to raise their hand and wait to be recognized by the mayor before coming forward and making public comments. Commenters are asked to state their full name and address before commenting. Public commenters are limited to one comment, not to exceed 3 minutes. Comments should be directed to the mayor and township committee. If appropriate, the mayor may direct and recognize a staff employee or professional to respond to comments either at this meeting or in writing after this meeting.
Anybody in the first row want to comment? Come on.
Hi, Chris Cadwell, 19 Goldsmith. I just wanted to come by and introduce myself. Moved to the town about a year and a half ago. We're happy to be here. My wife certainly is very happy about Santa coming by. I'm a father of 2 boys, so interested in getting involved in the community. I noticed the TABS report. There, I think, is a vacancy on the TABS committee. I ride my bike to Bellworks every day, so happy to contribute there. I do energy development for a business. I negotiate pilot agreements quite a bit, and I wanted to know if people were looking into several $1 billion for connecting communities divided by highways. In the recent federal legislation, there's quite a bit of money for communities like ours to have bike lanes over highways and stuff like that. So if I can help, would like to. That's all.
Thank you, Chris. If you're interested in applying for anything, there's an application through the clerk's office, so you could apply. You have it? Okay.
I applied in September. Wendy said
Okay,
I should
okay,
come
good,
by
good.
and
All
introduce
right.
myself.
All right, good, good, perfect. Thank you. Do you want to say
You wanted a
something?
formal introduction. I said this is the best way to do it.
Absolutely. No, thank you for coming out.
Anybody else need a job?
Anybody else in the public? Yes.
Barbara Singer, 5 Deerfield Road. 3 quick questions. On Resolution 2022-318, it refers to the Government Strategy Group. I'm wondering what they do. I'm also wondering the add-on on 800 Homedale Road. There's a lot of technical information in that introduction. I'm wondering in English what exactly that was about. And then 2022-327, the link it didn't link to anything when I clicked on the link, so I'm wondering what that resolution was about. So those 3 resolutions.
So Government Strategy Group is the professional services firm we hired to do our administrative search. And we hired them back in probably February timeframe this year. That's who they are, 800 Homedale Road. You have that, Mike?
Sure. That's a subdivision approval that went through the planning board. It actually went through several years ago, and the approval was tied up in court. The applicant was simply completing resolution compliance and had to convey 3 different deeds to the township, very standard part of a subdivision. And given the timing of the meetings, I worked with the applicant's attorney, and we advanced the resolution tonight.
And I just clicked on 2022-327 and the link went through, so if it doesn't, you just maybe ping the clerk in the morning and we can resend it to you, but it's working up here right now. All right, thank you. Anybody else in public? Yes.
Jay Yanello, 18 Ladwood Drive. Mayor Bontempo and Township Committee, you've seen the turbulence from this whole Horn property situation. And I've heard various reasons why it came on the agenda or wasn't on the agenda and came up last minute. And I've heard lots of background about the property, the owner, what he could do, what he can't do. And, you know, I've heard all of it. I just want to tell you, as a MBA, someone who knows nothing about science, Wall Street career, stocks and everything, I had real no opinion on this Horn. But not this past Monday. The prior Monday at 7:30 a.m., I parked my car there, probably illegally, hiked up the mountain, went up there, and I looked around, and I said to myself, wow. Because I heard the prospect of moving the Horn, preserving the Horn, putting it at Bellworks, putting it wherever. There's something about that Horn being right up there on that plateau where it's pointing or turning, looking at the sky. And I hope now that we are moving forward with this development thing, all of you, if you have not, hike up there, stand up there, look at it, and I hope we take into consideration the significance of that, as from what I'm hearing, so many people from around the world are acknowledging. And I don't know where this is going, but I hope we can preserve that up there. Thank you.
So, it's working. Couple things. So, it should have been on the agenda prior to us walking on the agenda. The council wasn't here. We had his partner covering him, but probably just a drop off somewhere. But I know he was working on that prior to him being out. There's a challenge with the antenna, and I'm almost glad that people got excited and enthused about it, because antenna's been, I don't go up on the property. I haven't been there in years, so I haven't physically get it because it's actually been closed off. I actually have here's the police reports of all the incidents and vandalism that's gone on.
I was
up
waiting
there.
to get arrested myself.
Yeah, well.
Brian would love that.
So I knew there was some issues going on, but I didn't really pay attention to them until probably a year and a half ago when Dr. Wilson reached out to me with some concerns. And so I reached out to Steve Winters, who's Director of Community Development, and I said, can you give me a summary of what's going on up there? Because I really haven't gone out there. And he gave me a very lengthy email detailing it, but there's a lot of violations because it's owned by the current private developer, owner of the property. Maybe I shouldn't call him developer, private owner of the building right now. It's private property. He owns it. And the one thing that stands out to me was that the violations he imposed on it because of it's unsafe. And literally to a point where he said the 7-meter horn must immediately have a collapsed perimeter established and a semi-permanent fence installed around the perimeter. It's that unsafe right now. So we are hopeful that as Counselor has said and our planner has said, that the only mechanism we have to have some input with a private entity in town is to go through the redevelopment plan we're going through. And it's going to be a multi-month process where there's going to be a lot of there's going to be, I believe, 4 public hearings to be able to come out and make comments, thoughts, suggestions, whatever they decide. And we don't know. We just know that I think the 4 of us unanimously wanted to maintain the antenna. We can't dictate where it's going to go, but I could tell you that there are other potential forces at play that would like to move the antenna out of Homedale, and we're trying to prevent it. The prior administrator, myself, had meetings with the congressman's office, representatives from the former owner, trying to come up with some type of plan to save it and restore it, because the cost could be exorbitant. And maybe that's one of the uses of the pilot money we're talking about tonight, is because the cost is but we don't own it, so it's not, we can't touch it. We could only do what we're doing with our community development or building construction code department, is try to make sure that it's safe and it doesn't cause a threat or harm because of the years and years of deterioration. In fact, it's funny, when I spoke to Dr. Wilson about it, he said, you understand, when we built this, we built it for one purpose, for our project. We didn't think it was going to have the impact or last decades upon decades. It wasn't built to last decades on decades, especially in the Northeast where it is right now. So there's got to be a lot of work to it, and maybe even some type of protection around it. You know, there were thoughts about that. So I think we're early on the process, and we are hopeful that we come to some resolution where it's preserved, it stays in Homedale, and it still becomes an iconic visiting spot for people to come and see from the community and potentially all over the world. Because I know there are trips where I've been told by Dr. Wilson that, you know, Harvard comes down here every year, Princeton comes over every year, and people study this, which is amazing, and we want that to continue. But we're kind of limited in our role because we don't own it, nor is it on our property right now. But I think that as this plan develops over the next months and maybe even years, it will come into a plan that will be a win-win for everybody.
Okay, the last thing I'll say is there was actually a Princeton professor at the planning board meeting the other day. That's how passionate people came. And even though it may be illegal, maybe you could get approval, anyone that makes a decision on this should have to go up there and stand next to it up there. I think it loses 70 to 75% of its value if it's not there. And again, I know nothing about stars or astronomy or anything.
Yeah. No, and I think, Jay, just to piggyback, right, the mayor's been the sole individual sort of working with the property owner, so he's privy to information we're not. That said, you know, I think the one thing that surprised me, and this is maybe some of my naivete up here still a little bit, I always appreciate the more people engage, the better. I've always said that. You know, I'd love to have this room filled every meeting we have. I think in this instance, nobody asked, right? If anybody asked me, I would have said, yeah, you know, we want to preserve this thing. And I think the one thing I'd like everyone to sort of remember here, right, is that we're residents too. We're your neighbors. We're raising our kids here. You know, all these things. We want to treasure our history. We want to honor everything that's made Homedale what it is, especially these just unbelievably innovative advancements and creations that are solely, you know, of our town.
It's
So I
part of the
think-
curriculum. My daughter, who you know is arts and whatever, I brought it up and she's like, "Oh yeah, we had lessons on that."
Yep.
I'm like, "Lessons on that, and it's ready for the scrap heap."
Yeah, yeah. and-
Or to be shipped away somewhere. I mean, it's fully integrated into our community.
Yes.
Your kids are learning about it. So.
Yeah, and so I think we are unified in our desire, and to the mayor's point, it's getting the mechanics of it done.
I hope it gets done right. Thank you.
Anybody else on public comment? Seeing none, I will close public comment. The last comment of the year will be you, Jay, for 2022, on the record. But thank everyone for coming out. Really appreciate the veterans again for coming out and supporting the veterans and all the programs, the Reach Across America. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.